Austria. A land of alpine pastures, spectacular mountains, picture postcard villages, and a massive hole in the ground where they hold the toughest off-road race in the world. And Karl Katok thought it would make a good course for a bike race. And amazingly, now that's what I call the sound of music. The west corner of the Austrian Alps seems an unlikely setting for the mother of all. A few years ago, this quiet picture off-road bike events. Until that is, you see the Erzberg mountain and the open cast iron mine that dominates the landscape. The riders from all over the world seem to agree with him. The 500 quickest riders then qualify for the Erzberg Rodeo, widely regarded as the toughest off-road bike race in the world. And that is my challenge. Get in the top 500 and qualify for the big one. The lineup was like a who's who of off-road biking. Everywhere you looked, there were world champions. Travis Pastrana, Jeremy McGrath, Ronnie Renner, David Knight, Christian Pfeiffer, to name but a few. And they were all here for the fun of it.
I love being on a motorcycle, and just with all the best riders in the world from so many different disciplines. I mean, Christian Pfeiffer, Seal Dupree, David Knight. This is just like McGrath. Yes, it's awesome.
You can think of the hardest things you could ever ride up and then probably make it 3 times harder.
You don't know exactly why you win. You came, you know. It's not for money. Maybe it's like a magnet, you know, this steel mountain.
Pulls us in.
Exactly.
Last year, just 20 riders reached the finish. But when you see what they have to ride over, you can understand why. When you're riding on terrain like that, what you need is a bike like this. It's 300 cc's of pure 2-stroke orange KTM love. It's super light, so I can pick it up again no matter how many times I drop it. It's dead easy to start, because I'm going to stall it every time I crash it as well. And it is largely indestructible, unlike me. One of the important things on an enduro bike is that you've got to be comfortable. You're going to be on it a long time. You're going to get dirt all over your hands. Any piece of discomfort is going to make itself felt. Now, being tall, I prefer to have my levers down a bit lower. Stops the tendons in the back of your hands getting knackered from your arm at that angle, constantly braking and changing gear. So, just push these down a bit. As well as that, you want them in the right place, so that the dip in the back of the bar sits in your fingers. This lump rubbing on your hand will be fine for half an hour, but after 4 hours, it's going to be agony. The Iron Giant course is 17 kilometres long, but it's fairly straightforward, starting at the bottom of the mine and winding its way up the mountain. It attracts riders of all levels of ability and on all sorts of bikes. For some, it's all a bit of fun, but for me, it was more serious. I had to get into the top 500, and I had just 2 goes in which to do it. For these prologue stages, they set riders off at 30-second intervals. So although you might meet other traffic on the course, you're not racing them. All it is a time trial. You are racing the clock. Charge up that mountain as quick as you can. Taking in the view on the way up, I was pretty mindful of the massive drops that were off to one side. I didn't want to go piling down any of those. But I was just trying to get into the swing of things. I got past some bloke on a little bike, and then some bloke who quite obviously knew what he was doing went flying past me, spraying me with dust as he went. As the course wound on up the mountain, the trickiest thing I found was working out where it went. I've never seen it before, So every corner that came up, I couldn't tell if it was a flat-out kink or a hairpin with a big drop-off down the mountain on the other side. So this meant I was losing a bit of time, but that's why they give you 2 runs. This time, it was as much to find out where the course went as it was to set a good time. With roughly 12 minutes gone, I made it through the arches to the top of the prologue. And promptly rode into a tyre, I was so knackered.
Well, I've had my first trip up the mountain. Prologue number 1 is out the way, and I'll be honest with you, it's pretty simple. However, don't be under any false impression. Comparing this run here to the final scramble on the Sunday would be like comparing a width of your swimming pool to a cross-channel swim. It's going to get very, very hard if I qualify.
As my first day in Austria drew to a close, I joined a bike cruise through the town. It's the riders' way of saying thanks to the local residents for putting up with all the noise. The last thing they'd want, you might think, but you'd be wrong.
And look at these people! They're well made up! They love having their town overrun with bikes. They're waving, cheering, clapping. Man, it's brilliant!
Well, I've got the results from yesterday. Funnily enough, I don't appear to be in the top 10, or actually the top 500. However, here we are. There, just after Thomas Kutscher, but ahead of Anton Gebertsberg. Thank heavens, I was trying to beat him.
The key thing was that my time for the first run up the Iron Giant was 40 seconds slower than the guy in 500th place. So, on the second run, I had to make up that time if I was going to qualify, and the weather wasn't helping.